open.
Holy happy hour, Batman. I am Ben. I'm an Episcopal priest and co-founder of the All Ports Open Network. On this show, Holy Happy Hour, Batman, I am joined by heroes of the gaming and geek world to talk all about, things like life, faith, spirituality, game design philosophy, whatever else comes up. Tonight, I'm so excited about this. I'm thrilled to be joined once again for the second time on this show. I like having repeat guests on this show because we get to kind of maybe go, into things we didn't get to go into before. We have Jason Cordova, who is the founder of the Gauntlet, the head of Gauntlet Publishing, and the creator of Brindlewood Bay on the show tonight. If you follow TTRPGs, and you know that right now Gauntlet Publishing is funding Brindlewood Bay on Kickstarter. As the last time I checked, which was earlier today, so admittedly this could have changed since then, there were over 4,400 people supporting that game on Kickstarter, raising over $276,000 for the project so far. Their next stretch goal, which I'm sure we will talk about tonight on the show, is a $300,000 stretch goal for a brand new podcast inspired by Brindlewood Bay. If you want to help bring that to life, head over to Kickstarter, back Brindlewood Bay now if you haven't. In just a minute, I'm going to show you a Brindlewood Bay themed cocktail I made, so we're going to get to that in just a second. But before that, speaking of crowdfunding, I have a little bit of APON news here. Before we get started tonight with Jason, I wanted to just take a moment to talk to you about our game from APON Games, The Hard Lessons. So this show, Holy Happy Hour Batman, is part of the All Ports Open Network. And our game publishing wing, APON Games, we just launched our first crowdfunding campaign. And while it may not be a giant smash success on Kickstarter like Brindlewood Bay is, we did, however, excitingly, fund our first tier, which is a complete final digital edition of the Hard Lessons within the first 12 hours of the campaign. So we are very excited about that. The Hard Lessons, if you don't know it, is a GM-less storytelling and world-building game about a great master who has died, and their students who have gathered one last night to share stories, to raise a toast to the master, and to ultimately decide the fate of the master's school. This game, The Hard Lessons, is written by Josh Wise, who is my co-founder of the All Ports Open Network. I've done the layout on the edition that exists so far. I'm going to be doing the layout of the final version, and I'm helping to run the campaign. So it's a really fun game. That's sort of my involvement in it. If you ever dreamed of playing through a scenario like what would happen if Batman died or disappeared and all the different boy wonders, the different Robins over the years gathered for one last night to decide who would take up the mantle of Batman, this is the game for you. It's completely setting neutral. You can play it with any kind of master you want. You can play it with a master chef or the first astronaut to lead an expedition outside of our solar system, or an evil lich lord and her minions. Whatever you can imagine, can fit into that sort of scenario. So we funded our game and our first stretch goal, which was character record sheets, and now we're on to funding the next goal, which is play sets. Play sets will be a fully customized version of the Hard Lessons for a particular genre and setting. So our first one that we're funding right now with our next goal, which we're like $70 away from hitting, is going to be a pirate play set. So if you're anything like me and you are currently obsessed with Our Flag Means Death the way I am, which I love that show, now is the time to get over to Itch and to help support this game by helping us reach that goal, if you haven't done that yet. So like I said, we're about $70 away from hitting that goal. And I think I have a little thing to show you here. I forgot to pull it up on the screen. There you go. There's my little Hard Lessons thing. Meant to have that up the screen while I was talking about it and forgot, but there you can see, and there's the link there on the screen to the Itch page if you want to support us. We're not using Kickstarter for this campaign. We're using itchfunding, which is an alternative to Kickstarter. If you just go to that link, you can check it out. You can read all about the game, learn about it, see what we're trying to do. If you back it for $10, you get literally everything. You get the digital edition of the game, character record sheets, you get every playset that we fund, and so now is the time to do that. So like I said, head over to Itch and check it out. I'll put the link in the show notes so people can check it out later. So let me take that down. One last note here. Next Monday, you're going to want to come back at the same bat time and same bat channel because we'll be joined by Jay Dragon, writer of Wander Home and project lead on Yazeva's Bed and Breakfast. I'm really excited to have Jay coming on the show, so I hope you'll come back and join us again next week. Okay, it is happy hour, and that means it is time to show you my Brindlewood Bay cocktail, which is up, as you can see the recipe up on the screen right there. I worked on this drink over the weekend. I called this the Murder Mavens. I really wanted to do a drink inspired by Brindlewood Bay. I've been actually really looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to have Jason on the show, but I'm really looking forward to making a Brindlewood Bay cocktail. So I even discussed this recipe with a bartender over the weekend. I said to the bartender, I've got a weird question for you. What kind of drink do you think what do old ladies drink? And then I explained to him why I was asking. We talked a little bit about Murder, She Wrote. And so this is the result that you can see on the screen. This is the Murder Maven. This is my Brindlewood Bay inspired cocktail. It's 1.5 ounces of gin. It's 3/4 ounce sour cherry liqueur, 1/4 ounce of grenadine, and you take an egg white. You're going to want that egg white because it like really froths the drink up. If you're a vegan like my wife, or like I am most of the time, you can actually substitute something called aquafaba for the egg white. If you don't know what aquafaba is, well, if you're a vegan, you probably do. If you don't, you can Google it. It'll sound a little weird when you Google it, but trust me, it's not bad. And it works in cocktails. And then I also here as garnish. So basically you take the gin, sour cherry liqueur, grenadine, and the egg white. You put it in a shaker. You shake it up with ice so it gets really, really cold and really, really frothy. And then you're going to want to just pour that thing into a coupe glass or a martini glass. And then what I did with the drink was I took those like amazing expensive Luxardo cherries. If you don't know what I'm talking about, they're like the most decadent cherries on the planet. They're just absolutely incredible. They're like candy. And I put 1 or 2 of those into the drink and then just took like drips from the like liquid in the jar and just kind of dripped it around the edge and in the drink. So it's like a little blood, murder thing. So yes, that's the Murder Maven. Yeah, check it out. If you do try it, as always, the rules you have to tell me. So that's the drink for this week. So, all right, let's not waste any more time. Let's get Jason up here on the show so we can talk all about Brindlewood Bay and whatever else. There we go. Jason, welcome back to Holy Happy Hour, Batman.
Hey, thanks for having me on again. I'm very excited about this cocktail. I forgot about the cocktail component. So I'm like very, very excited about that now. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I don't know what I'm excited about too. Like I said, as much as I'm looking forward to talking. Hold on, I can't see you right now. There we go. Now I can see you. As much as I've been looking forward to talking, I was really looking forward to creating a Brindlewood Bay inspired drink because it's just like such a rich setting. And begging for a cocktail, so I don't does it sound good to you? What do you think?
I think it sounds delicious. I'm glad you resisted the temptation to do something like briny, because of the setting.
No, I thought of that, but I've sort of done some stuff like that before. Instead, I was more thinking like, even if murder. It wasn't in the setting, if it was like a murder mystery. I was thinking, I grew up watching Murder, She Wrote. So like that was kind of what was in my head making this.
Yeah, same. Yeah, sounds good.
So then I had a realization, which is that you have a cookbook. I was like, oh, what are the chances I can convince Jason to put...
we could totally get that in there. Yeah,
really?
Absolutely.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, my God. 100%. We'll get in there. Yeah, 100%. We can totally do that. Yeah, that's a great idea. You remind me though, because I will.
Sure.
Send me a reminder though, because we're gonna want to have some drinks in there as well. I'm sure. Well, we have. I don't get too far ahead of the conversation, but like we have just about pared down all the recipes for the cookbook. So okay. There's still time to get something in there.
I will send you the recipe card for sure.
Awesome.
It would certainly make my life if that drink was in that cookbook.
That's awesome.
So a little bit of a story. We'll do a Brindlewood Bay pitch here in a second, but a little bit of a story for you about the cookbook. My wife is just a avid cooking. She loves to cook. She's just an avid cook, and she also loves solo RPGs.
Oh, well,
And
my goodness.
so
Yes.
when I saw the announcement that there was going to be a solo mystery cookbook as part of the Kickstarter for Brindlewood Bay, I just like lost my mind and
Yeah.
sent her the link in an email. So in our household, the one thing, people pulling back the curtain for folks, is that I've backed too many Kickstarters, and so like it always happens the same way. The Kickstarter goes live. I take the link. I email it to my wife who's at work, and I say, "Would you please look at this and tell me what permission level I have for backing this game?"
Pick a pledge tier.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. But with this one, I was like, "Hey, look, we can get you this cookbook with a solo mystery adventure," so I could hook her into it.
Yeah. It's good. I love it. Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, we got ahead of ourselves. But if someone's watching this and somehow, I don't know, give us the Brindlewood Bay pitch in case somebody doesn't know what we're talking about.
Yeah, so Brindlewood Bay is a tabletop role-playing game about a group of elderly women, members of the local Murder Mavens Mystery Book Club. They are elderly women who live in this coastal community called Brindlewood Bay. They really love mystery books, and they use the skills they've learned from reading so many mystery books to solve murder mysteries taking place in their town of Brindlewood Bay. Now, it's that part of it's very like kind of Murder, She Wrote, right? Like Brindlewood Bay is literally inspired by Cabot Cove, right?
Yeah.
But as they investigate these mysteries, as your campaign proceeds, they start to become aware that there is a dark occult conspiracy that connects all the mysteries. And so they will eventually have to face that dark supernatural conspiracy in order to save their community. Yeah.
It's so awesome. It's such a great pitch for a game. Does Brindlewood Bay, is it located somewhere specific? I guess what I'm really asking is it in Maine?
No, it's actually in Massachusetts. Yeah, it is not in Maine. I thought about putting it in Maine, and the reason why I ended up putting it in Massachusetts is because I wanted the characters to have really easy access to Boston, and because I had like an idea for a mix of mysteries between like they were kind of more cozy and small, and then some that were like more urban. But yeah, the game it's Murder, She Wrote meets Lovecraft basically, and and people have really responded well to it. We're really excited with how much people have like really embraced that concept.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things that I definitely wanted to talk about was your feelings about how it's been received. So, I don't know. Yeah, anything you want to say about that is great. My reaction was, I mean, not entirely surprised, right? Like, it's a great game. I know people are excited about it. I knew people are. The mystery mechanics, are really brilliant.
Thank you.
So, like, on the one hand, I'm not surprised it's doing well. On the other hand, I'm constantly surprised whenever there could be and this is the second one in like a very short time, of a completely non-violent, like in the sense of like it's not a fantasy adventure fighting game.
Yeah.
To see it do really well in the TTRPG space is exciting to me. I'm just curious.
Well, if you're talking about Yazabuz, it's like two role-playing games that prominently feature bed and breakfasts as well. So we're riding the B&B the B&B train right now.
Right?
You should definitely bring that up with Jay next time.
I will.
Speak to them. It's interesting, right? I think that Brindlewood Bay's, even before the Kickstarter, like it was a platinum seller on drive-through, like it had, it had its fan base.
Right.
I think it stands out for a lot of different reasons, but one of the reasons is, and its success is surprising precisely for what you've identified. Like it does not elf, it does not dragon, it does not have, it does not have combat mechanics, even though theoretically combat's a thing that can happen, but there's no mechanics for it. It is about old women. It is it has so many things, I think, kind of going against it, but yet I think those things also help it stand out and maybe get people's attention as well. So sometimes you can just kind of like strike on the right idea, I think. So like the hook of Murder, She Wrote meets Cthulhu, or like Cthulhu, She Wrote is a pretty good like one-line hook, and then And then when people start to learn about the mystery system and the way it works, I think they get like more, they kind of like fall in love with it. So that's what we discovered anyway. Yeah.
I think what you just described is exactly what I would have thought too. Like that was my thinking, which is like, it's got a great hook. It's really easy to explain in a short pitch. It's a great hook, and then behind the hook is like really good bones, right? Like a really well designed mystery mechanic that gets people excited when they hear about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like the idea.
I think that's right. I mean, it feels really nice because I think there's a reality where like that, like, you do a lot of work for something and you try to like really make something the best it can be, and you spend a lot of time thinking about it like at a system level and design level, and people go yay, but then they don't like engage, but people are engaging with Brindlewood Bay. That's very, very like gratifying. Like people play it. That makes me really happy.
That is one of the things I wanted to talk about, and I happened to see something you posted on Twitter earlier today, actually, just sort of coincidentally, which is like about playing games, right? Like
that's my scheduled tweet.
Oh, okay.
I say that all the time. It's not scheduled, but it's a routine tweet for me. Yeah.
Well, it's true. So I like, so people don't know, the tweet was, well, what was it? Do you remember the exact?
I can say it from memory because it's not the first time I've tweeted it, but it was basically like make time to play role-playing games, like reading them and creating them and talking about them. Those are all fabulous things to do, but you should also play, because I think play is how you stay connected to what you love about them, right? And no matter how you engage with role-playing games, this is not, I'm going beyond the tweet now, but no matter how you engage with role-playing games, play informs it in a positive way, right? So if you're designing them, if you're discussing them, if you are just having a discourse day on Twitter and you're kind of fed up, the play brings you to back to that place where you love them, right? And so that's always been my thing. Like play is just so central to everything I do, everything the Gauntlet does. It just I mean, I still run games 4 times a week, that has not stopped. That's not going to stop. Right. And it's always with like, it's just like random people in our Discord, like, it's just people who want to play a game with me. Like we'll play a game, I just, that's just what I like to do. It is my love.
That is one of the things I think is so amazing, both about what you do and about the Gauntlet, is being play forward, and the fact that you just play with people you don't necessarily know, like, because that, I don't know, that's it.
Well,
right?
so
that's
we have this, but there's a reason why it works, right? Like, because we have a very, very well-honed, battle-tested, like, play culture, right? Like, I know how to sit down with a group of 4 people I've never met and set their expectations appropriately and make sure they have a good time, right? I don't think it's my responsibility necessarily to do that. We're all responsible for it. Sure. But I know how to like set the table, right? So that they're going to enjoy themselves, and that just comes from like a very, very strong culture of play, right? Like it's the kind of thing anybody can do, but it is, you benefit from practicing it a lot, right? Like it's a kind of thing that gets better and better the more you do it.
Yeah. So, yeah, absolutely. And seeing that tweet made me grateful for, like, I run a game club in the Philadelphia area, actually with Blaine Martin, who you also know.
Oh, yeah.
And we run that together. And it makes me, I'm so grateful for it, because it means every Saturday, like, we do board games also, so it's not every week. It's not a TTRPG. But it means that, like, a lot of Saturdays, we're going to be playing a TTRPG, and it could be something I've never played before. It could be something that somebody else really wants to play. It's going to be potentially with people who I've never met. And that, just the fact that it has to happen every Saturday because we run it, is so good, because you can't get out of it. It's like, it's coming.
Well, and I think like, I mean, my role-playing game life is like almost entirely online, except for just like the local playtesting we do, but like, but otherwise, like, it's 90% online,
Right.
And what I love about, like, sort of like just making space to play is you get to sort of like cross a bridge between, like, a person I know as an avatar on the internet, or who I chat with on Discord sometimes or on Twitter sometimes, but now I play a game with them and I know them better. Blaine's a great example, right? Like, I knew Blaine's work, like, going back for quite a while before we finally played together. And then when we did play together, it was like, oh, like, I feel like I'm glad we got to know each other in this way.
Yeah,
Like
that's it.
it enriches my understanding of you and what you do, and like we know each other better. And I think it's also really hard. I think once you play with someone that you might otherwise only know in an online context,
Hmm.
once you play with them, you are you sort of like become immune to like people like basically like when they say something online, like you know their heart more, like you
Hmm.
know them more, like, and you give
Hmm.
them the benefit of the doubt, or
Hmm.
or you're more bulletproof in terms of like people's opinions of that person or whatever, because that's just the way it is, like you just get to know people, and
Hmm.
that's a I just think it's a good thing to do. Like I ran Brindlewood Bay for +1 XP with Tony,
Yeah.
and Chase Carter from Polygon and Dicebreaker was there in the game, and I had known Chase's work for ages, and I had like a certain opinion of Chase just based off of his writing and how people interact with his writing, right? And but then we got to play with each other, and I was like, oh, I just have like such a better understanding of this person now. I'm really glad we got to do this.
Yep.
So play just is good. Yeah.
It is. It is. It's so good. It's on so many levels, right?
Yeah.
But I think what you're touching on is like that we can lose sight of that. And I think we can lose sight of that especially because like Twitter as an environment, which is a lot of indie TTRPG exists on Twitter, is a toxic environment a lot of times.
A lot of times, yeah.
I think. And so I think like it can pull us away from the stuff that makes play good and that makes TTRPGs good. I don't know. That's what I
Well,
think.
Twitter especially just kind of, I mean, Twitter just sort of rewards a certain type of engagement and a certain type of like kind of like like kind of interacting with the hobby that is sometimes interesting but frequently just sort of depressing.
Hmm.
Like you just kind of read it and you're like, okay, I guess this is what we're doing today.
Yeah.
um but again, it's like, but I also like I find that I have to remind myself frequently, like, okay, someone is saying something on Twitter that you don't necessarily agree with, but it's not like you don't need to chime in. It's not, you don't need to say anything. You can your day will be just fine by not like getting involved in this. And furthermore, who knows, you might meet that person a year from now at a convention, or like in some other place, and you're going to like regret having said something antagonistic or whatever, right? So
Yeah.
I try to keep all that. Those are hard lessons to learn, by the way. Like those are hard won lessons for me personally. And
Well, from
but
years of
worth
being
learning.
yeah, you like you said, like most of your gaming space is online, right? So,
Mhm.
like if you're online with game, you're going to learn those lessons over
And
many
you're going to
years
learn them the
of
hard way. You're going
yeah.
to learn them the hard way. And I, uh, I wish sometimes it hadn't been so hard, but I also try to like give people the same amount of grace that I have received,
Sure.
when it comes to like interacting with people
Yeah.
online and stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, so as a creator, I imagine like, one of the things I think there's a lot of Kickstarters and there's a lot of games that people back on Kickstarter, and like as a creator, sometimes I think about this like you make it and you wonder how much people are interacting with it by actually playing it versus like
Yeah.
just reading it or maybe getting
Yeah.
it and putting it on their shelf. But it must be a different experience knowing people are like actively playing the game, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, I will say that um, I still love the people who only buy it and put it on their
Oh
shelf.
sure,
Like,
yeah, that's which is
like
yeah.
we need those people, right? Like,
Sure.
but I do, and I actually think that I actually am, despite my regular tweet,
Yeah.
I actually do think that there's a lot of value in just having a game, right?
100%.
And reading a game.
Could not agree more.
Yeah, but no, you're right. I mean, so I only have two games out. Brindlewood Bay and The Between are the only two, and we've been very fortunate because we're able to launch these games in a way that they have like a built-in base of players like out of the gate, right? So we launched them to the Gauntlet Patreon, so the people in the Gauntlet Patreon, they get it for just their regular pledge, um, and because it's such a play forward community, we know it's going to get played, right? And so we have that's an advantage we've kind of built for our games, and organized around the idea of play. And we let the games, we did this with Trophy as well, we let the games just kind of simmer for a year or two, almost 2.5 years in the case of Brindlewood Bay, before we like do anything bigger with them, right? Like we just let them kind of like let people play them, let people like find their way with them. We get their feedback, we listen to their questions, we make revisions as we need to. It's a very like kind of, it's almost like the beta process in a way, even though we don't really think about them like that, but that's kind of what it is. And so, yes, it's gratifying. It's awesome that people play the games. We structured both the games and the way we release them so that they do get played. So that part's not super surprising. But what's nice is how we're able to make the games better because people are playing them, and how we're able to learn things even about our own games because people play them, right? That's really, really valuable. And it's not the kind of thing that other companies, much bigger companies than us, do it through formal playtest programs, right? We don't have anything like that. But what we do have is just a really, really dedicated, excited, passionate player base, who kind of follow our podcasts and different things. And so we are able to get really, really good, like practical feedback on the games and stuff. And that's very satisfying. So there's this like gratifying part, but there's also this really practical benefit as well.
Yeah. So, well, speaking of bigger companies, I have been curious about sort of the future of what you're thinking about the future with Gauntlet Publishing, given the success of this on Kickstarter. Do you feel like this is sort of bumping the Gauntlet Publishing into like a next tier up of sort of TTRPG companies? Are you not thinking of it that way? Are you even able to think sort of about what's next yet, or is it too soon?
So Gauntlet Publishing is two people. It's myself and my partner David, and it's me and David, and like and like the many freelancers that also work on the games, but every day it's me and David, and obviously we talk about where we see the business going, and we had hoped that Brindlewood Bay would do well on Kickstarter, and that would allow us to do some things that we want to do. But honestly, the things that we have planned in the next, I would say 2 years, we're going to happen regardless.
Yeah.
So really it's not, I can't say that like the success of this Kickstarter campaign has really changed our trajectory any, because next up is the Between, and then after that is, whatever else, and we have a couple of, projects that are unannounced that are kind of currently in various stages of development. All that was happening no matter what. Right. Sure. And so, I do think what it does do is, it definitely takes the edge off, right? Because there's a certain part of like doing this as a job, and it is our job.
Yeah.
There's a certain part of doing this as your job where you just feel this like kind of hum in the background of like, wow, this could all fall apart tomorrow.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like, wow, this could all fall apart. Hopefully you'll be able to pay your rent, like there's that part of it, And so the success of the Kickstarter does help like smooth that over quite a bit, which is nice. But I think our plan is really straightforward. We've got several games in the pipe in various stages of completion and development and release, and everything will just be in a certain line. Whether we do Kickstarter again is an open question. We like everybody, we're looking at all of our options just because we don't love the idea of being bound to one particular platform.
Absolutely.
But Kickstarter was definitely the right place for Brindlewood Bay, and so we feel very good about that. And we have one license project in the works. We do have a license. It's a small license, but we do have it. And so that's something you'll be hearing about a little bit later this year.
Oh, that's exciting.
We're really excited about it. And we hope that maybe that turns into something bigger,
Okay.
For us, it's all about finding the right thing. Our lane is very much like horror. We do all of our games, even Brindlewood Bay, which I consider to be at least a horror, partially a horror game.
Right.
They have this like sort of mystery horror ethos, and so I think that's what we're kind of good at. And so we're kind of looking at like this license thing that we're going to be doing later this year. It slots in so nicely with our whole, just everything we're already doing, which is why it was a good fit for us. And
you're just churning the speculative engine for people right now, right?
Yeah, well, we will have something to talk about soon. I will give you a hint though.
Okay.
It is a very well loved horror audio drama podcast.
Okay.
There, I'll say that. So, yeah,
and we can eliminate one of those.
You can eliminate. Yeah, you can definitely eliminate one of those. We tried to get that one.
And
but, yeah, you can definitely eliminate that one.
I saw a lot of people online talking about how they thought. I'm not trying to stir up trouble by saying this, but I definitely saw a lot of people online saying like, "Oh, I really feel like Gauntlet or Trophy would be would have been a much better,
way better job."
Yeah,
yeah, like okay. I don't mind saying it. I God bless them. I don't have anything like sure. What they've done is amazing. I'm not a fan of Cypher, so I think that there are better systems for that setting. But that's
I thought it was an odd. I thought it was an odd match. I and just transparency to our viewers who I maybe even don't even owe this level of transparency, but I have backed many. I like Cypher. I've backed many Monte Cook Kickstarters in the past. I did not back this one. I'm not, and that's two reasons. One, like it's not my podcast. It's not a podcast I listen to. And two, I was like, like that's just to me it doesn't match. So
yeah,
just like,
I love Old Gods, and I love Old Gods, but I'm not particularly fond of Cypher, which is not really anything against Cypher. It's just not my thing. I know why people like it. There's nothing wrong with that. Yeah. It's just not for me personally. I do think it's kind of a mismatch system wise, but I don't think that's a controversial thing to say.
Certainly, I bet lots of people have been saying it online.
Yeah.
So we're not,
I bet you there's a lot of people who are going to get that book and they're mostly just going to use it for setting material for a system of their choice, and that's fine too. You know, the book looks beautiful, and I love Old Gods. Old Gods is amazing. But we are working with another well-loved horror podcast to make the game of it. So
well, people in the chat can they can now have their
you can all speculate.
For the old. I've now sidetracked my own train of thought with questions. It's people talking. I think we have a first-time chatter, Signal Station. Welcome.
That's Michael.
Yeah, okay. Biggest mismatch since Chuck Tingle's RPG, maybe is what it's what he said in the chat.
I want to play that though, by the way.
Speaking of Blaine, who we've already talked about in the show, that's how I know that Chuck Tingle RPG exists. Is one day I just get a message from Blaine. It's like, oh my gosh, this is a real thing, and then looking into me. But I have now sidetracked my train of thought from my questions completely. Well, let's talk a little bit about the setting a little more then, I guess, because I also feel obligated. Like this is Holy Happy Hour, so like I do try to talk at least some degree of religion and stuff on the show. So let's talk about the occult and Brindlewood Bay. So I actually don't know a whole lot about the occult levels of Brindlewood. So I'm curious to talk to you, sort of unpack that a little bit, like the occult inspirations and if there's any religious elements sort of in there, or I don't know. But
so the sort of like cosmology of Brindlewood Bay, and indeed my other game, The Between, is this it's like a mashup of like Greek mystery cults and Lovecraftian style eldritch horror. So it's like taking Greek mythology but like really like amping up the like monstrosity level, right? So it is like it's a minotaur, but it's a minotaur with like lots of crazy like multiple heads and shit like that, right? Like the cult that the Mavens have to face, and they are truly like kind of like 50% of the setting, even though the Mavens get all the star power and they get all the credit and they're on all the pictures. The Midwives of the Fragrant Void, which is the cult, they are very much there. They're in the background for about half the campaign, but then they start to become more pronounced as the campaign goes on. And their whole thing is they worship the monstrous form of Queen Persephone. Their religion is all organized around the Persephone myth, except that their version of Persephone is like more of this like sort of like almost like a the goat with 1,000 young style horror creature, right? Like so they want to bring forth what's called a child of Persephone, which is a titanic, horrifying, chthonic monstrosity inspired by Greek myth. And so that's sort of the the cosmology of it. As you play the game, there's mysteries that like touch on various other parts of this cosmology. And so one of the mysteries called Exit Stage Death, you actually meet like another cult. You meet like essentially the equivalent cult, but for Hades. And so they're so the Hades cult, who they call themselves the Court of the Occluded King. They are in sort of like a love-hate relationship with the midwives, and the mavens get in the middle of that. That's all kind of late campaign stuff, but that's basically it. And the idea behind it is Brindlewood Bay has at its core this idea of women, of femininity, of birth, of all these like sort of there's all this like sort of metaphors kind of going on in the game, right? And it has a lot of my own sort of like built-in like hang-ups and stuff with like my own mother. It has like all this stuff built into it, right? And so the Persephone myth felt like a good fit, but it's not just like the Persephone myth as you know it. It's this like heightened, more monstrous, more cosmic version of it. But that's the rough outline of it. Yeah.
No, that's really that's interesting on multiple levels. I want to ask about the femininity piece, but also just sort of the cosmology, and maybe they kind of go together. So, like, I guess I could approach it like this to say, like, why that particular approach to cosmology? Like, where did that, what inspired you to?
Well, I mean, there was a version of this game where I just used like, basically just like public domain Lovecraft creatures, right? Like I could have done that, right? But I wanted to get away from that just because like Lovecraft, a lot of Lovecraft stuff has a lot of like, sort of problematic historical baggage that I want to deal with. And so I was more interested in Lovecraftian or Lovecraft-esque, if you will, not Lovecraft directly, Yeah. And so then I began thinking about just like, okay, well, I can come up with my own cosmology, my own sort of like mythos if I want. And I could have done that, but I began to think about, I think there's a certain part of gaming that wants familiarity and accessibility, right? And one of the ways you can make something more accessible is if you give them something that people like that they know already, right? Like something that they're at least at a certain basic level familiar with, but then you twist it the way you want to twist it, right? And so that's why I chose, that's why I went with Greek mythology. I was like, well, I think that is, a lot of people know these myths, a lot of people know these, the symbolism, the stories, the meaning behind a lot of it, or they'll bring their own interpretation in any case, but they have some kind of level of familiarity. So you can take that as your foundation and then build this extra, like layer of meaning onto it, and build this extra like cosmology and add this stuff to it to make it what you want it to be, right? So that was my main motivation there. It's to present something that's kind of familiar, but then like really different when you finally start engaging with it. I think that was basically
I think there's something really to be said for that. Like I really think the idea of like taking something that's super familiar, it's just like a tangible, like you said, it's accessible. There's like something
it's accessible.
There's something about that that's just like a touchstone point where it's like I don't know, it's just really charming to like take concepts that people are familiar with and then twist it. And to put it in a unique setting, and to put it in a small, cozy town in Massachusetts, like that's an interesting thing, right? Like it's both familiar and new, and there's something about that, if you do it the right way, can really capture people's attention.
That's what I hope. Yeah, and also I will say that in the original version of Brindlewood Bay, which was just the 40-page like sort of preview, what we now call the preview edition, but back then it was before Kickstarter, it was just called Brindlewood Bay, but but it was like a zine length, 40 pages. We didn't have a lot of room to really go into this stuff with the midwives, right? Like we kind of said basically who they were and what they roughly believed and what they were trying to do, but we otherwise left it to the keeper, which is what we call the GM. We otherwise left it to the keeper to fill in all those details, and that works fine because the game is kind of fundamentally emergent and collaborative, and so it's not that big of a deal. But I will say that in the 2 years that the game has been out, this is the question we get the most often. Keepers want to know more about the midwives. They want to know, what are their abilities, who are their contacts in the town, what are these monsters that serve them, like what are the creatures they're trying to summon, like what are the rituals they do. We got these questions a lot, and so that's what's exciting about the Kickstarter, because the Kickstarter, these versions of the book give us these bigger, more full, complete versions of Brindlewood Bay, gives us the space to really explore that, right? And I find that very exciting. It's still going to have the sort of collaborative storytelling aspect of it, especially as it relates to the mysteries.
Yeah.
But for the keeper who really wants that support of like, okay, what do the midwives do? Who do they know? What are their powers? Like, what do we have we unlocked as a stretch goal a little like monster manual essentially for the midwives, right? Like, they're going to have that stuff in the book, when we're very excited about that.
It's really cool. Yeah, I it's probably also helpful for people to have that I'm just thinking about how some GMs might be a little bit nervous sometimes thinking about running a mystery where they don't necessarily even know the end of the mystery. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Or that too. Yeah.
And so like I don't know, having that information is probably super comforting for people in those. I don't know. There's like a little bit of going out on a limb nature of it.
Yeah,
does that make sense?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think if I could, like, if someone like asks the question like, okay, well, I already have the old version of Brindlewood Bay, like, why do I need this one? Well, there's lots of reasons. There's loads of reasons, but a big one though is that this is the version I've always wanted to do, and that version has so much more keeper support than the original one did, right? My number one goal is to make it easy for anyone to grab this book and read through it and feel very, very confident running the game, right? Brindlewood Bay has always gotten high marks from players and readers that it's easy to play and run, but we were going to take that to the next level. Like I want the keeper to feel fully supported, and that comes from like my particular. It goes back to play culture, right? Like that's how I interact with games. Just thinking, you know, So I just want to make sure everybody has that experience, you know.
No, that's exactly it. I think about that a lot with games. Like I'm similar in that when I think about games as I'm working on writing games, as I'm I'm thinking about like, okay, I'm thinking about me in some ways, I guess, because like when I sit down and I open a book for the first time to run, right? Like I want to feel supported in the ability to take this to the table and feel confident in being able to do it well. And I've read rule books where I don't feel comfortable or confident that I understood exactly how to bring this to the table, and I've read
you feel overwhelmed, right? Yes. You can sometimes have the worst problem or an opposite problem.
Yeah, that's the other pendulum, I guess, where it's just like too much. Yeah. That's a hard balance to strike, though, I think.
It is, but I think we've done it. But yeah, it is.
Well, I mean, I actually think you've probably done it too, and I don't even really know what this book's going to look like exactly. But I mean, like you said, having that culture of play, culture is probably hugely helpful for that.
It's hugely helpful because here's the thing. I think the thing that you don't really get if you don't play games a lot, and I'm not saying you have to play games a lot to successfully game design, that's not what I'm saying. Yeah, but I am saying that if you run and play lots of games, you start to have a good, fine, almost intuitive sense of like what I call cognitive load, like basically like how much a GM or a player can handle at any given time, you know? Right. Yes. And so if you know that at a sort of instinctual level, your game design flows from that, right? Like you like when I'm writing Brindlewood Bay and the between stuff, I'm always thinking about like, no, that's just a little bit too far. I don't think this doesn't need another move here. That's like more than is needed to get the job done. It's going to mess up the cognitive load of the players, and so I'm not going to do that. And so my game design considers that, right? The between, actually, I play with structure quite a lot to help manage the cognitive load, right? Like the structure of play goes a long way in sort of like mitigating cognitive load and funneling everyone's thinking, right? And like when they're like in the moment. And that's the kind of thing that I don't think I would be doing as a game designer if I did not have this like strong play forward, like kind of background.
I'm considering myself really slow when it comes to learning games. Like and it's funny because I also make them, but like I am really slow when it comes to learning games. Like I need to read, the way I learn, I need to read a rule book or I need to read rules, but that's also probably not enough. I can't really have someone explain them to me. Yeah. And again, I have a weekly game club. People will read me rules very often and I listen. as hard as I can, but it's never gonna reach in. Like, I'm never gonna process it. So
Yeah.
like I then have to play, which is the main way I can learn
Right.
rules.
Yeah.
So like I'm just very hyper aware of how I process rules, and that makes me aware that other people process rules very differently. And so
It's true.
yeah, so
Yeah.
because of that, I think I'm sort of hypersensitive to, hey, different people will learn, will figure this out differently depending on their sort of psychology.
Yeah, and that's actually a really interesting point because it goes to something else that I've been doing a lot, especially the last 2 years, which is I have been making a point of running pretty much everything we publish on my YouTube, right? I've got like almost everything from the Trophy Dark book now on my YouTube. I've got most of the Trophy Gold stuff. I've got lots of Brindlewood Bay and lots of the Between, and even a little bit of parts of Lean. Like I've been doing all this, and part of it's just I run lots of games, so why not put them on YouTube? But also, I know that some people, that's how they learn it, you know? Like I know there are lots of people who learn how to play games by just watching people do it, you know? And so I'm happy to show that. You know?
And to that point, not just learning how to play the game, right, but learning how to run the game.
Yeah.
By watching you run the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that like when I'm running a game, I am always doing it in a way that's like, this is sort of like the way we intended for it to go, you know? Like it doesn't mean it's like the way you have to do it, but at least you know what we at Gauntlet Publishing intended, you know? And I know that because we talk about it all the time, right? And so I'm happy to have that out there for people. I mean, it's you know, some of those videos only get like a couple hundred viewers, but if even 10 of those viewers like then take their viewing and then go run it themselves, that's a win, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's 100% a win. So. Yeah.
Well, do you want to wade at all into the discourse of like, is there a right way or a wrong way to run a game? Like,
yeah, I saw that yesterday.
Yeah, I know. But how about
yes.
from your perspective?
The answer is yes. There's a wrong way to run a game, and there's a right way to run a game. And I think here's the thing. I do think that there are certain games that there's definitely a wrong way to run them. That they are just complete. That you could sometimes tables just are engaging in serious premise rejection, or they are just totally discarding what the game designer intended, and that's fine. I mean, no one's going to come to their house and slap the book out of their hand, right? But but having said that, I also think it's equally important that you have a particular play culture or a particular table culture that can like get through that, right? Like when people say there's no right way or no wrong way, what they're really saying is, my friends get together and we have fun regardless, right? And that's fine. That's like that's a perfectly valid way of engaging with a game. So
yeah. So when does the Between come to funding? When's that happening?
We don't know yet. We don't really know yet. We're doing a seasonal release right now via our Patreon and then drive through, just to kind of build up the setting and kind of like do that same sort of like slow rollout that we did with the other games. We've got 2 more seasons to go, and then probably sometime after that, but I can't imagine it'll be before this year or like before like sometime in 2023. So yeah.
Gotcha. Well, so I teased this at the top of the show, but the $300,000 goal, which is, I didn't check right before we went live, but you're not far from it, right?
No, I don't know where we're at right now, but I think we'll probably be there if we maintain our pace. We'll be there in a few days. But,
okay.
So that's exciting, yeah.
And new podcast, right?
Yeah. I mean, so a lot of people are going to know me and my work from podcasts, right? Yeah. Like, and so we have podcasting in our blood as a entity, the Gauntlet, and me as a person. I love like RPG podcasting is my next favorite thing after running games. I love doing podcasts.
Right.
And our podcasts are mostly discussion podcasts. We do a little bit of AP, but it's mostly discussion. And they're really, really about like, I think that something we've proven that we have the ability to do is to explain a game at a sort of design level, but also to sort of celebrate the community around that game and create a community around a game. We did this probably most famously with our Dungeon World podcast, Discern Realities. We have no connection to Dungeon World other than that we were fans at the time, and but our podcast became like really essential listening for people who were into Dungeon World, right? And so that is we want to do that for not just Brindlewood Bay, but like the line of the line of games that flow from Brindlewood Bay, right? So the podcast is called The Darkened Threshold, which is that's actually a Between reference, but it's called The Darkened Threshold, and it will the first episodes will start with a discussion of Brindlewood Bay because that's the sort of progenitor game, right? But then it will kind of flow pretty quickly to being principally about the Between, and we're going to talk about like gameplay, keeper support, and keeper advice. We're going to talk about games that are hacks of Brindlewood Bay and the Between. We're going to talk about third-party games and third-party mysteries and things. And so we just want to have this space to just expand the conversation around these games. And I'm really, really excited about it because it's the kind of thing that we've always wanted to do. And I don't think we necessarily even need Kickstarter to give us permission to do it, but setting aside money from the Kickstarter to do it makes sure that it gets done. So like it's more likely to get done. And so we're going to commit to doing 20 episodes and 4 actual play episodes, or 20 discussion and 4 actual play if we hit the stretch goal. And I'm very, very excited about it because I know that this is how, like, especially the really hardcore fans of the Gauntlet and of my work, this is how they like to engage with it, right? They like the whole thing, like the games, and they like the play culture, but they like the podcast too. And so we want to give them the whole thing. And we think Brindlewood Bay deserves it. So.
Yeah. So 4 actual play is a very specific number.
It is. Yeah.
Is there something behind that?
It's to get like probably enough to do like basically it's enough episodes to do like 1 mystery essentially, or 2 mysteries. Okay. I just want, because I want to, kind of like the YouTube, the goal of these actual plays would be like, if somebody's like, I don't know how to run Brindlewood Bay, they'll be able to go and like hear, 2 episodes of Brindlewood Bay, and there's going to be 2 for the Between as well. But basically just like to show, okay, this is the starter mystery. If you do nothing else, just do what Jason does, right? Like just copy what Jason does in this podcast, right? So yeah, that's the idea behind it.
Okay. Has anyone pitched to you? I thought of this earlier today when I was thinking about tonight's show. It just sort of popped. I was thinking about murder mystery stuff I like. Has anyone pitched to you a like Father Brown take on like hack of Brindlewood Bay?
Yeah. So we actually have this. Well, I'm sure someone's talked about hacks before, but one of the stretch goals we unlocked for the Kickstarter is a brand new set of Maven moves. So the current Maven moves are all inspired by TV detectives from American television from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. And the new set is going to be like famous TV and literary sleuths, right? So like the Miss Marples and Nancy Drews and Encyclopedia Brown even, and Father Brown might make his way on there.
Okay. I just thought, oh man, maybe I should write a like a Brindlewood type hack of the game that's like a pre-solving murder mysteries.
Yeah,
I was like,
totally do it. It's such an easy fit. Yeah, absolutely.
It's such an easy fit. And I was like, well, what would be really cool, I don't know if I have the time to do, I have too many ideas and not enough time, but what would be really neat for me would be, in my mind here, is like to do it in a solo way. Like I really like I really like the idea because it does capture the Father Brown sort of like vibe of like I don't know, it's just something I thought of earlier today where I was like, oh, but you could be priest solving mysteries too.
Just write it. I'm one of those people. It's like you just sit down and do it, and like you might surprise yourself. It might be like it might just like the words might start flowing, and before you know it, you've got a game.
It's true. That's true. Well, something else I wanted to talk to you about the project related to the Kickstarter that I just find utterly fascinating was the mystery writing contest.
Yeah.
So do you want to tell us a little bit about the mystery writing contest and like how it's going to work, how it's working, and how people, anything you want to pitch about that? I just want to kind of dig into it a little bit.
Yeah, sure. So we've done contests a lot. That's just a part of our culture. That's just part of Gauntlet. Yeah. We've done 2 trophy ones, and we've done one for the Between. Back in the day, we did like Dungeon World contests and all kinds of stuff, different games. And the main thing for us is this is just another aspect of what we love about role-playing games. Like so much of like everything we do like flows out of just our basic love for the hobby. and how we like to engage with the hobby. And I personally am a big like lonely fun guy. I love to sit just like do the lonely fun of GM prep, you know, and like writing things, you know.
Yeah.
And now I do it and I put it on the internet for money, right? But
Sure.
like, but it's kind of one of those ways that I like to engage with the thing. And so we learned with Trophy especially that like we could create a community around the game with a contest, with by encouraging people to write something for the game, by creating a structure that was easy to write for, and there's a fair few people who came out of that those initial Trophy contests, and they have either like pretty nice side hustles in role-playing games, or they've moved on to, you know, bigger things, right? And we love that, you know. And the way we look at it is like, well, we do a cash prize, which is, you know, it's nice to have, but it's not the main reason why you do it, why you participate. But there's a cash prize there that you could win. And importantly, you are engaged in a process with a bunch of like-minded people. And so on our Discord, we have channels for people just to like chat and discuss like what they're doing, the mysteries they're working on, or in the case of Trophy, the incursions they were working on.
Yeah.
And I chime in periodically to give my advice because I'm not a judge, so I could just engage as I wish. I hold workshops. I hold workshops for the contestants to give them my insight about how to write them. You know,
that's really neat.
And it's just a way of like just supporting the community. I mean, because, you know, do we need people writing mysteries for us? Like, no, we've got plenty of mysteries, you know, like it's not like a we're looking for things to publish, but sometimes really awesome stuff comes out of the contest and we do want to publish it, right? But if you want to take it and publish it yourself, you can do that too. And so, but ultimately it's just another way of engaging and another way of building community around the game. And we just love to do it. We love it. I mean,
Well, the chat Signal Station said came out of the Trophy contest with an arrow towards their own name. I'm just thinking that it's also, it's just a cool way to help support people getting into writing, getting into design. And like, that's really neat about it to me. Like, it's like giving a platform for people to cut their teeth.
It is true. And it is, you know, this is something we've always done. Like with our magazine Codex, we have this section called the miscellany, which is just like little crowdsourced little blurbs around a topic or a theme, you know, like, you know, 3 dozen this or 3 dozen that, you know, and we get people to, it's all crowdsourced, so people just give us their contributions. But one of the like fun bits of feedback we always got from that, and we still get from that, is this is the first like RPG writing I've ever done. This like little paragraph is the first I've ever done, and it was great. And it's like a low stakes thing. Like there's nothing really at stake. It's like just a fun thing to engage in. And if your thing gets picked to go in the magazine, then it's like, oh, cool, that's cool, you know. This is like that, but just a little bit more elevated, right? Like it's, there's a prize, but it's at the end of the day, it's just about like kind of doing a thing and enjoying yourself. And we've created structures within to write for these games, so it's not hard. I don't think it's hard. And I think you're capable of learning something about yourself, right? And learning that you might really love doing a thing that you didn't know about. And I think that's a win. I think that's super cool.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah.
So is there anything you like hope for Brindlewood Bay that you like are like a hope or dream for
I want to option it for a TV show.
I did not anticipate that answer, but I freaking love that answer.
My DMs are open. I think it would be a smashing good TV show, and I've said it before. I think within 5 to 10 years there will be a Brindlewood Bay TV show. I believe that completely, and I feel very confident about that. And with the success of the Kickstarter, maybe it'll happen sooner. I don't know, but I think it would be a great TV show, and I am here to do a licensing deal. So if you're watching this and you have a connection at Shudder or Netflix, let me know. We'll make this happen.
It would make a really good TV show.
I think it would. I think it'd be a great TV show.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I mean,
having said that though, like, I think it'd be super cool if people did things with it. You know, I mean, we're pretty, for game stuff, like we're very, very open. Like if you want to just make something for Brindlewood Bay, like we don't really care. Like, you know, if you're going to use our characters, like let us know beforehand. But otherwise, like you can kind of do whatever you want. But I love the idea of like other types of media as well, and that's a different kind of conversation. But I think it'd be super cool to do. And but no, I want a Brindlewood Bay TV show. Yeah, 100%.
I just like the idea of reversing the, instead of licensing a TV show to do a game for it, licensing this game into a TV show.
Right. Yeah.
It would be such a freaking awesome.
I think it'd be dope. And like, I think Trophy would make a great like licensing opportunity as well. The Between is already based off Penny Dreadful, so there's maybe nothing there, but like, but I think Brindlewood Bay and Trophy are like really, really primed for that. And that's a conversation that like my partners in those games, we talk about a lot. So
I couldn't agree more about Trophy. I've fallen in love with Trophy over the last several months. I know Blaine's watching now because he poked his head into the chat, but Blaine got me totally hooked on playing Trophy Gold, and there's not enough time in my life to play it. That's the problem, because now I just want to play more Trophy Gold. I'm saying this so Blaine could do it in the chat, but sorry, I'm really self-serving here in this. The interview has turned into me talking about the games I want to play, but people have some comments in the chat about what we were talking about a minute ago with the writing worth saying on the show, which is Chaotic Blade 5 said it's really good of the Gauntlet that people keep their rights to the work afterwards.
Like if you write something for the contest, you are allowed to sell it. The only stipulation we put on it is if you're using any of our locations or characters other than the town of Brindlewood Bay, we just want you to ask us first before you go sell it. Like if you're going to use Sheriff Dalrymple or something like that, we want to know beforehand. But otherwise, if you own it, you're free to go sell it as you wish. So,
that is pretty cool. You could probably lock down more than, or try to, I guess.
You totally could. Yeah. But I don't see what the point of it would be. I mean, because honestly, it'd be so counterproductive to be really precious about it. Right. I mean, like, because at the end of the day, like few things are like truly like, original creations anyhow. That's just a sort of philosophical thing I have, I know the things that we have created and that we're interested in, like, taking advantage of or whatever in the future, but that doesn't mean there's not space for other people to do things, especially when it comes to game stuff, right? Now, if somebody was going to go make like a Brindlewood Bay comic book or something, I would definitely want to know about that.
Oh, sure,
but like, but for game stuff, it seems like just seems like a
counterproductive.
Counterproductive to like fight it, but also not even that. I want them to do it. So
So it sounds to me like what you've learned is that the more you encourage and support community around the games, the better it is for everybody involved. And that's not even just a self-serving thing, right? Like it doesn't, like it's, if the idea is to produce actual community around the games, an environment where people can foster building relationships, meeting people, friendships, grow as people learn more about themselves, all these things you're talking about, then like, it's counterproductive to like have that kind of preciousness about it.
It really is. And it's just not like, I don't know, it's just not the space I want to be in, like it's just not it's not the like atmosphere I want to like be in necessarily. So we just don't have that kind of like attitude about it. I will say though that there are people who have asked about like an official license or like an SRD for the Between or Brindlewood Bay.
Yeah.
And I spoiler alert, you don't need it. Like legally, you cannot copyright rules, so no one can stop you from making your hack of the Between, right? But having said that, I do think people like kind of want guidance and maybe like explicit permission to do a thing. And so this summer we are going to be putting out an SRD for the Between, and along with a game, like we're going to put out a game as well to show like how to use it,
Oh, that's really
and
cool.
So it's called the Between Ghosts of El Paso, and we're very excited about that. And but so we hope that will encourage people to go ahead and make their Between hacks, So.
And that's this summer, you said?
Yeah, it should be June. Yeah.
Sorry, people getting excited in the chat, which is awesome.
Oh, good.
So putting on the designer hat, I think that's right for the SRD, like your gut instinct that like it gives people permission.
I think people just want to know they can do it,
Yeah. I've been designing a Questlandia 1 hack called Bizlandia, and that kind of happened because they brought Questlandia back to Kickstarter to redo the original, and as part of that they were going to release an SRD, and on their Discord we had conversations about it, and even like the SRD is not out yet for it, but I've been kind of working on it shadow wise, like in the backdrop and everything. And like, yeah, I definitely want both of the things you said, guidance from the SRD, which is like, yeah, I really want that guidance. And then also that explicit permission, I think is super important, because even though like I could, like there's nothing legally keeping me from like taking concepts or rules or whatever.
Rules are entirely not subject to copyright.
Right.
You can do whatever you want. Yeah.
Exactly. Like, but there is something about, you don't want to do that. Like, you know what I mean? Like you definitely want to.
No, I get it. Yeah. And we're going one step further with the between, because as much as we love Brindlewood Bay, we actually view the between as the more like rich territory for like hacks and stuff. And so we're going one step further, and we're like actually going to like release that guidance plus a game.
Yeah, I love that.
That's meant to show like this is how you could do it.
Like, hey, here's how you take this and make something with it. I think that's awesome. It's like taking everything you're talking before about like doing it on YouTube and all this stuff, and like taking that. It's an extension of that mentality of like, like here's how it's done, so that you can do it. No, I love that. It's great. Yeah, so I don't know what. So we've kind of talked already about the answer to this. My question is going to be like sort of what's next for you, but we've kind of already talked about that. Maybe a vacation. Are you going to get some rest?
Never. No, I will at some point. I say that, but that's not going to happen. Up next, we do have Ghosts of El Paso, which is not my game. That's by Daniel Qualls and my publishing partner, David Lafreniere. But obviously I'll, have my eye on it just to make sure it all, fits with the between and stuff. But that's coming up in the summer. We have redacted title licensed project based off a horror podcast. That's going to be something that my writing partner Gabriel Robinson and I are working on. I have another writing partner, Mike Martins. We're working on a thing called Singapore, which is it's inspired by the Tom Waits song Singapore, and it's basically Brindlewood Bay on a quasi fantasy merchant vessel. And
sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. So those are some things I have in the pipeline. Oh, and Pizza Time. Pizza Time is something David and I are working on, which is a thing I've been working on for ages in my head. But it's basically like I like my one-line hooks. It is Stephen King's It meets Five Nights at Freddy's, right? So that's the idea behind Pizza Time.
Pizza Time.
Those are all the things, various stages of production. Yeah.
How about not game design? Is there anything you're doing that's not game design that's exciting?
I'm a fucking loser. I just do games. Like, all I do is play role-playing games. All I do is publish role-playing games and talk about role-playing games. Is all I do. Is literally all I do. Like, I have like no other like life. I occasionally watch a TV show or a movie and or Drag Race. So that's like it. I have a thing I love to do. It is role-playing games, and that sounds really horrible now that I say it out loud.
Well, I was going to ask, okay, this is not meant to be a loaded question. This is meant to be a legitimate question, which is like, is that healthy? Do you think that's healthy? Because the answer could be yes. Again, I'm not loaded. It's not an opinion.
I'm perfectly happy with it. You know why? Yeah. Because I had a health scare a couple years ago, right? Really bad health scare, and I got through it. And pretty much at that point, I was like, I'm just going to do what makes me happy, man. Like, I'm going to do what makes me happy, and role-playing games make me fucking happy. So I'm going to do that. And I'm going to do it until I'm in the grave. So, yeah, I'm okay with it. It works for me.
I also don't fully believe you, because I feel like there's got to be like everybody does something else for health, something else for sanity, something you spend so much time online, you must unplug to do something. Do you I don't know,
you'd be really surprised
in the woods. No, okay, fine.
You'd be really surprised. I mean I run minimum 4 games a week, so straight away like 12 hours of my week. I was going to say 12
hours a week. That's a lot of time.
Yeah. Like, right. So, I mean, no, I love it too much. I mean, I read books. But I don't have a relationship or anything like that. Or like, I don't know. It's just not where I'm at in my head.
As much as I want to that now, dig in and pry into what you just said, we won't do it here on the show. There's a part of
we
me
don't have
that's,
time for that, sadly.
there's a part of me that's like, oh, I want to turn the show into now gossip time, but we won't do that. But you're gonna do a stream right after this one,
Yeah.
and so we're gonna kind of wrap this a little earlier than I usually do. But do you want to point people towards that, because it's an actual play, right?
Oh yeah, I'm going to be in 20 minutes. I'm going to be on Critical Failsafe. Critical Failsafe is right now they do 2 actual plays. They're a fairly new stream, and one of them is my game, The Between, and so I've been watching them every Monday. But they're off The Between tonight, so they're getting me in to do a session at Brindlewood Bay, and so I'm going to run Brindlewood Bay for them.
Nice.
Yeah, they're a great group. They're really great players. Definitely check them out. Yeah.
Awesome. Critical Failsafe. Is that, and it's on Twitch, right?
It's on Twitch. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Great. Yeah, Jason, thank you so much for taking the time to come on the show.
Thanks for having me. Yeah,
I know you've
really
been doing a lot of different shows, so I really appreciate you making the time for
I'm
mine.
a robot. I got it. I'm an interview robot at this point. Just turn me on and I'll start talking.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to send the interview robot Jason here back to my digital green room real quick, and then just sort of do some last minute housekeeping here. So let me just switch back to just me. I don't have much housekeeping at the end of the show, but just real quick, huge thanks again to Jason for coming on the show. I really appreciate him coming back on. Everyone go check out Brindlewood Bay on Kickstarter. If you haven't done it by the end of this show, I don't know what you're doing. If you didn't do it before or haven't done it yet, it's in the show notes. Go check it out. You still have time, but don't waste time. Go check it out right now. Speaking of things you can do, please hit follow here on Twitch, so you can catch new episodes, including next week when Jay Dragon comes on to talk about another kind of cozy-ish game about it, with a bed and breakfast prominently featured. So if you want to have back-to-back, I didn't do it on purpose. We went back-to-back bed and breakfast Holy Happy Hour episodes. Come back next week. Jay's going to be on the show to talk about Yazeba's bed and breakfast, and actually, who knows what else. Actually, I don't even know how much we'll talk about Yazeba's. We might just sort of talk about Jay and get into Jay's worldview, which I'm excited about. If you only caught part of tonight's episode, you'll be able to watch it on demand for a brief time here on Twitch. You can watch it forever and ever on YouTube in its entirety. So you can head to allportsopen.com, watch every episode of our show there. That's allportsopen.com. You can also search for Holy Happy Hour Batman on YouTube if you're not already watching it there. We have a whole YouTube channel, which is all the episodes of the show. You can watch the last time Jason was on the show there on YouTube, or you can watch this episode in its entirety. And it would be great if we got more subscribers to our YouTube channel. Smash that subscribe button and hit the little bell so you get notified whenever we're going to go live or have a new episode. So I just want to take a moment to say huge thanks to Joshua Wise, my APON co-founder, for the artwork on this stream, for everything Josh does for the network, for writing our first game, The Hard Lessons, which is crowdfunding now on itch.io. So if you didn't check that out, please also go check that out. Thanks to Doctor Octoroc for the use of his theme song on the show, which you heard at the beginning and you're going to hear again in just a minute. As I mentioned, The Hard Lessons is itchfunding right now. We're crowdfunding that on itch.io. We need your support to make the best possible version of that game we can. So we really want to bring it to people who I think would really enjoy it, and we want to expose it to them so that they can check it out and maybe bring it to table and play it, as we talked about on this episode. That's what we want. We want people to play. We want people to play our game, have fun playing it. It's a lot of fun. I played it several times. It's really great. I think people really enjoy playing it. So if you want to check that out, you can get the link in the show notes, or on this, if you're watching us live on the screen in just a minute, we'll pull that up also. Okay. I'm Ben, that gamer priest. Come back next week for Jay Dragon. It's going to be our guest. Really excited to have Jay on the show. Enjoy the holiest and happiest of hours, my friends, and I hope you have a great night. And go play some RPGs, or in 15 minutes, watch Jason play some RPGs. Have a good night, everybody.